Welcome to my life, Chassidus Applied, episode 193. Freilich and Hanukkah. We are literally in the night of the fifth day of Hanukkah, going to the sixth, and appropriate, therefore, to talk about Hanukkah, though we spoke about it last week. But now that we're coming from the fifth Lichtel, and we know that the fifth day of Hanukkah, without specifying why, is considered to be in Hanukkah itself something special. And from the different explanations given, there are a few things that are stated about it. Why is the fifth day of Hanukkah so unique? So the Rebbe in Tovshin Mem, in the year Tovshin Mem, in Fabringen, that he spoke about on the fifth day of Hanukkah, explained because it's connected with Erev Rosh Chodesh. Fifth day of Hanukkah is always Erev Rosh Chodesh. Tonight they're going to be Rosh Chodesh Teves, which always falls out right in the middle of Hanukkah, because Hanukkah begins on the 25th of Kislev. So it's inevitable, 8 days, it's going always into the month of Teves. So it's interesting, Hanukkah connects the 2 months of Kislev and Teves. So, being that Erev, Rosh Chodesh is called Erev Yom Kippur Cotton, meaning it's like a mini Yom Kippur, so that's why the fifth day of Teves, fifth day of Hanukkah, is always considered something special. Some places, some people mention the fifth day of Hanukkah can never be on a Shabbos. So it has a particular strength because it can illuminate even a day that can never be Shabbos. Others explain that the fifth day of Hanukkah is because this is the first, now we go into the Erev of the five candles, flames out of 8. 4 is still halfway. So you have Erev, so in a sense you have, according to Hillel, which is the halacha, we light 5 out of 8, so whenever you go to Erev, the most of the Chanukah is going through, that itself has a power. The Sikh and Tovshin Maamar to the children, the Rebbe once spoke, Zois Chanukah, that we light all 8 flames, so if every flame is like the Rebbe spoke then in the language of Teves Hashem, the army of Hashem, and said that the flame is like the power of Ner Mitzvah Teireh, the light of Teireh Mitzvos, and the light of the Neshama, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the soul of the human beings, compared to a flame. So in the first night of Hanukkah, 1 flame, so you have the strength of 1. Second day, it's 2. And then the Rebbe says, on the 8th day, he used the expression there, a full attack, I think it was the expression, that you have the full army, the full power of all 8 days. So based on that, you can say the 5th day of Hanukkah, the 5th night of Hanukkah, is when you light the majority, so you really have the power to really overcome any form of darkness. So all that adds up to being a special day, Hanukkah, even though every day is special, of course, and the custom, the different minhagim about the Leil Gimel, the 3rd day of Hanukkah, the 4th of Hanukkah, give Hanukkah geld, but the Rebbe already instituted the Hanukkah geld, meaning giving children and giving each other the money on Hanukkah should be done all days of Hanukkah. Bottom line, we're in the 5th day of Hanukkah. Hanukkah celebrates light, is the Nitzachon of of Ner Mitzvah Teireh. So though there was a war, an actual war, with the Yevonim, with the Greeks, and yet we celebrate the war because the war was not over a Gashmizdika thing, it wasn't over physical things, as the Levush says. Purim, Haman, Lahashmid, La'abid wanted Rachmana Litzlan to kill the Jews, Pasha Begashmis. So the celebration there, the Levush writes, is through Gashmizdika things. Through a Suda, through a meal, through Sholach Monis, Matanos Lavyenim. Chanukah was the Ansachon of the Neshama, of Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, Ner Mitzvah V'Teireh. Because the Greeks didn't want to kill the Jews. They wanted to say, L'shkichem Teireh Secha. No problem. Teireh as a book of philosophy, as a book of great ideas. But why Teireh Secha? God's Teireh. Mitzvahs, no problem, as morals and ethics and values. But Chukir, it's a Necha. Knew that it's God's mitzvahs. So they were opposed to the Ruchnis, to the Neshama within the Torah and the mitzvahs. And that's why the Nitzachon, the celebration, is in Neshama, in light, and we light, and lighting is Ner Mitzvah V'Teireh and Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. And the 5th day of Hanukkah, which we're now moving into the next day, is we come to a point where we have the majority of the 8 flames, the whole 8, the cycle of 8, and beyond the cycle of 8, meaning also the Shemer Sahekef, which is the Makiv that comes the 8th, more than just the cycle of 7. And that majority gives you the power, the Rubi Kakule, the power to already fulfill the entire full mission of what the Hanukkah represents. In Chassidus applied language, it means that the light of the soul, the light of every soul, the light of the Torah mitzvahs that we do, the study of Torah, which compared to Ner mitzvah, Torah light, and Eraisa in Aramaic, the word for Torah is Eraisa, Yaisa, the Zohar says. It brings, it draws, it channels light, and mitzvah, Ner mitzvah, the candle of the mitzvah, that when we are, Hanukkah gives us the power that though we live in a dark world and we go through different challenges in life, and the biggest challenge perhaps of all is the lack of clarity, that we dwell in darkness. In this world, you don't know where the twists and turns of life will be. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. It's like riding on a road that's a dark road, and all the paths in life are filled with danger, filled with risks and all kinds of things, and God should protect us all. Comes Torah and Mitzvos, which is like a beam of light. Think of the light, the headlights of a car, or the lighthouse on the sea, and together with the light of the neshama, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, which is ignited by Torah and Mitzvos, it gives us the power to deal with any challenge, with any lack of clarity, with anything that was symbolized by darkness, whether it's physical darkness or psychological darkness or emotional darkness or intellectual darkness, lack of clarity, confusion. We are shrouded in the shadows of our lives. Comes Hanukkah, and it's meant to empower. We don't just light Hanukkah candles to look at them. As a matter of fact, we look at them not to have any anor from them, but we look at them in order to reflect, as the Friedrich Rebbe says, the story we listen to. We listen to what the flames tell us, and they tell us the story of our own lives, and tell us that you too can ignite and light the flame in a candle. And each night we increase in Marrying Baalei Teshuva, we increase in the light, and we light it at Al Pesach Beisim Bachutz, facing outside, and we light it in the evening, all symbolizing and all indicating the power that it can illuminate every crevice and every corner and nook and cranny, even the places that sometimes they're uglier or the darker places in our lives, including the skeletons in our closet. So it has so many lessons in that regard. And the way to do it is to, number one, is acknowledge, do the mitzvah of Hanukkah, and then acknowledge how this is. You have a soul that's burning brightly inside of you, whether you're aware of it or not. Become aware of it on Hanukkah, and ignite it through a mitzvah and through Torah. And of course, the mitzvah of Ner Hanukkah itself is a mitzvah that helps illuminate that part of ourselves and that part of our souls. We also go from this into Zeis Hanukkah will be this coming week, the end of the week, in a few days actually, I should say, middle of the week, Tuesday. And there too, we, Tuesday night, today is Hanukkah began on Tuesday night, we go till Tuesday night, till Wednesday. That Zeis Hanukkah is, like I said, the full force of all the 8 flames. And why don't we light 8 flames right away from day one? Shammai's opinion was what you do. Why don't we light? Because that's the way we grow. We grow Marrying Baalei Teshuva step by step by step. To wait to truly conquer, the way to truly transform something is you don't want to necessarily bite off more than you can chew. You go step by step until you're able to come with the full blaze and the full power of Zeis Hanukkah. There's more to be said on these topics, and I will refer you to, let's see, did I speak about these matters? Episode 94, I spoke about this as well, so I don't want to have to repeat what I said there. It's already archived, and here's an opportunity to refer to our special section on our site, meaningfullife.com/mylife, where you have the archives, 192 episodes already, and you have the ability to download the MP3s, as well as the essays and from the previous essay contests of people writing about applying Chassidus to particular challenges in life. We also talk about, because this week is also the 5th of Teves and Vayigash, coming up next Shabbos. So Hey Teves, of course, 31 years ago, was a day that the Rebbe instituted. That is the day then the federal court was established, to whom belongs the library of Agudas Chassidic Chabad. And it became a type of yontiv by us, and how we celebrate it is through learning, of course. And people wonder why we still honor something that was simply, seemingly more of an aggravating episode and setback. When it's over with, let's forget about it. But remember, by Eden, we don't focus on the negative, you focus on what comes out of it. That was established that the Tnu of Chabad, as the Rebbe spoke of those Sichos, know that in Tavshim Mem Hey, going back when the court case first began, or when the issues first began, I should say, before the court case. When the challenge was not about private, who owns, whether it was not it was not a challenge about family or personal matters. It was a challenge on the nitzchis, on the eternity of the movement. That if it becomes private inheritance, then basically, like the Rebbe yelled in Tezvav Tamas Tov Shemem Hey, that the argument from the other side was that there was a levaya, there was a funeral in Tov Shin Yud, and that's that, and there's no more, there's no future. So now it's time to divide the library. So is the future of Chabad, and the future that Chabad is not a personal a property, but rather like Teda itself, like Moshe Rabbeinu's Teda lives on and belongs to all Eden. Teda Tziva Lanu Moshe Meroshe Kehilas Yaakov. That we're talking here a Teda and a movement and an approach to a life that's just part of Teda, not a private matter. So it wasn't whether the Rebbe was one son-in-law versus another son-in-law, God forbid, but it was about the whole Tanua of the movement that lives on. And as I've explained in previous times, including in episode 94, episode 49, 94, 144, and 145, I discussed at length the power of Hey Tev is teaching us in a way you can say it's more even for today than it was back 31 years ago. Why? Because today, this is also a question people have. The Rebbe is not here physically. Does the movement live on? And the fact that it lives on, because I know nafshi ksovis Yehovis, I have placed my soul in the Torah. And the ksovim lo zechayis, as the Rebbe Rashab said, irgei in himmel, the ksovim lo zechayich. And as the Rebbe explains, that even how he is in heaven, you have him here in his Torah, which means the Rebbe lives on through his Torah. All the Rabbeim live on through the Torah. So the movement lives and thrives and grows and nitzchis all the way into Mashiach. So this is the lesson Hey Tevis came and established that even in a federal court of law, the nitzchis of the Rebbe is not an individual, but he belongs to the Chassidim, and therefore he lives on forever. Mazari b'chaim, afu b'chaim. As his children are alive, so too he is alive. The lesson to us is very clear. It's exactly why we're sitting and we talk about these ideas. Chassidus lives, and it lives through us. When we apply it to our lives, we live by it. When it inspires us, when it gives us guidance and direction, that is Hey Tevis, the celebration of the nitzchis of Chassidus in our lives. And it is up to us. That's why our learning of Chassidus, our applying of Chassidus, our bringing it into our personal lives is so vital, because it's not incidental. That demonstrates its nitzchis. That's not just sitting on a shelf. That's not just something that people study, but it's something they live by, a way of life. That's how I would sum up in a nutshell what Hey Tevis is about. Parsha Vayigash, which always associates, usually comes in either the same, like in this case, Maamar the Shabbos, but usually the week of Vayigash. Vayigash Yehuda Sholach Lefon of Geshna. What did Yaakov do when he came down to Mitzrayim? He sent Yehuda before him to establish a place of learning. Because they're not coming to Mitzrayim just to survive the famine and to live. Ayid, wherever he goes to turn it and transform it into a place of Torah. As the Rebbe explained in those sichos back then, the connection of Vayigash to Hey Tevis, that idea, the idea of transforming everything through our learning and through our living it. And the idea of Vayigash, Yehuda al Yosef, Vayigash, I love Yehuda. Yehuda approaching Yosef, so Chassidus explains, Yehuda is Maisa. Yosef is Talmud. And Yehuda is approaching Yosef, the union of Talmud and Maisa and Talmud. Talmud Gadol Shemev de Maisa, the greatness of Talmud that comes into action, which is the essence of what Yiddishkeit is about. It's a living Judaism. It's a living Chassidus. It's an applied Chassidus. It's a Chassidus that comes alive both in our minds and our hearts, but not a philosophy alone. Like I said before, not just Teda Secha. It's God's Teda, because through Teda it becomes a channel. Teda is a vehicle to bring godliness into this world, as mitzvahs are vehicles to bring godliness into this world. And that's the mission that each of us carries, the lessons that we learn from Hanukkah, from Hey Tevis, from Erev Chodesh, which of course is the moon diminishes only to be reborn again. Idea again that we are constantly in a state of growth and movement. And of course the lesson of Hanukkah, that even when it seemed that all was extinguished and it seemed like there was no hope, they couldn't find even a crucible of pure olive oil, they found it. as soon as the moon is waning and it disappears, right at that moment, it's reborn again. When? So it happens on the 5th day of Hanukkah, going into the 6th day. The Erev Rosh Chodesh into Rosh Chodesh, the renewal, Shehem Hasidin L'Chadash Kamesa, reflecting on our own renewal. So the lessons abound on many levels. Ten L'Chacham V'Yech Kamed. I just gave them briefly. I referred you to some previous episodes where there's more discussed on this. And let us now go to some topics that have been addressed, that have been questions that come in. I want to again reiterate, this is the time to, this is a great opportunity for anyone who would like to send in a question, submit a question at meaningfullife.com/mylife. There's an anonymous forum where you can write anything you wish, no rate to trace it to your name. If you want us to respond to you, either by sending you something, some material that we're offering or anything you'd like to have, or you want to communicate with us, please include your email there. I say that because sometimes people send in questions, they don't send an email, we have no way of knowing who you are, contacting you. The email, whatever email address you send, we will respond to. There's also a good opportunity to mention those that have sent in questions, and there are many. Because of the number of them, can't cover them every week. We will cover them, Mitzvah Hashem, every week, another selection, trying to organize them on the certain topics. So the questions that you've asked, if you follow, you'll see that they are answered, if not that week, in a few weeks. Sometimes it takes more than a few weeks because we do have a backup of, I would say, a good maybe 100 questions. And every week come in, Baruch Hashem, Ken Yirbu, many questions. So please keep them coming and they will be addressed. I myself am quite surprised and shocked, as I've mentioned a number of times, firstly, that this continues on in such a vibrant and robust way. But above all, that the questions that come in reflect real life. Someone said to me, how many questions can one really ask? It doesn't become redundant. It's redundant if it's theoretical, but when you ask about personal life, questions are not redundant. Because it's your life that's at stake and it's your issues. And when you write something from your heart, it's that question. It may be a topic that was covered upon, and I'll refer to that, but nevertheless, it's unique. And I see not only unique, real questions come out that have never been asked before. So they're not just in any way recycled or repeated. Some that do overlap, as I said, I make reference to. And there's a few questions like that that fit the bill for this week, which is the first question that we'll address is, what to do if the work I love does not bring in an adequate income? What if what you enjoy and what you are good at does not suffice as a source of parnasa for your family? This is referring to a question asked on one of the soul workouts. We send out many different emails, a weekly newsletter with articles. We also send out twice a week something called a soul workout, which is a free subscription. You can subscribe to it. It's essentially, it's a short type of, like a workout, short type of piece that covers real issues in life, usually with bullets and suggested exercises. It's not long reading. It'll take you 2-3 minutes to read. And it's a very good boost at covering every topic under the sun. So one of them, we spoke about the soul workout that we spoke about. We talked about looking for things that you enjoy. Because when you do something that you enjoy, using the expression from the Gemara, that a person, when he was asked his teacher, where should he begin learning? He said, "B'mokim shali bechafetz," the place that your heart desires. Now, a place can be both the actual place in the Torah where your heart desires. Different people have different interests. Some people like one part of Torah, some people are drawn to another. Mokim could also mean the physical place, which yeshiva, which city, and so on. Why is Libei Chafetz so important? Because when you enjoy it, when your heart desires it, much more likely you'll stick with it. Additionally, that's the whole kavanah Torah, is not that it should just be done. Nasiv and Nishma is critical, Kabbalah sale, that you do it because God said so. But also it should be internalized. It should become something pnimius. And pnimius is when you personally can relate to it. And the fact is, God, Ein Deus Ein Shavas, we were created differently. People have different type of mindsets, different dispositions, different personalities. As such, it makes total sense that your shlichus, your mission, should be fitting to your personality. At times, we have to taka pravis kafia, meaning we have to do things even though it's not something we're so comfortable with. But there's a whole bunch of things that we have talents in, and that's exactly why you have the talent, is to use it in the direction and that purpose of for which your mission is. So it's very vital to have that. So of course now that amplifies the question, but what do you do when your parnasa, you can't make parnasa? Someone, let's say, is musically inclined. As much as they try, they can't make a living. They have to support a family. Artistically inclined, other things that we enjoy. So the questioner is asking, what do you do when you have that clash? On one hand, your personality is a certain type, but you can't make a living from the things that you enjoy most. So my response is the following. This is based on different letters from the Rebbe and also the general approach from Chassidus. We don't know the mysteries of God's ways, and we don't know what the trajectory of our lives and the purpose for which we were sent here. The Baal Shem Tov says that in Neshama, he said to the Mordechai, Tzaddik, that the Neshama kumt up lamata, and Neshama descends, the soul descends down below, lives 70, 80 years, to to do a favor for another Jew. But what the favor is, we don't know. And the Rebbe emphasizes in Tav Shemem Zayin, I believe, in the Sikha of Vayetze or Vayeshev, the Rebbe says, imagine that all the mitzvahs that the person does, that's not why the neshama came down here. Obviously, once you're here, you're mechuyev, you're responsible to do everything that you're obligated to do. But why did the soul initially come down? Was to do a favor. Since we don't know what favor, we have to try to do favor to everyone we can. So we don't know the mysteries of where we led and how we're led and what we're supposed to accomplish. Now, obviously, if a person can find a living, a livelihood in the things that they enjoy, then that's a labor of love. So it has all the qualities. Sometimes, whatever reason, we don't always find that. Either that's an assignment, either it's because it's a test, or it's because perhaps in the things you're doing, you may not personally enjoy it, but there's a shlichus for you to accomplish. Like the Alter Rebbe sent his Talmud to become a Baalei Gola for 20 years, even though he was a Talmud Chacham, a person fitting in a yeshiva, becoming a Baalei Gola, a taxi driver of the time. But it was to save a Jew, ultimately. So we don't know the reasons that we're put in different situations, and sometimes we do situations, and even frankly, someone who's doing something that they do enjoy. There are many things that you have to do that you don't enjoy that much. I enjoy the work I do, but I also have to raise money. You think I like raising money? Who likes raising money? And there's other things you have to do when you're part of a work, if you want to do something responsibly. It's not all a bed of roses. It's not all easy. So the fact of the matter is, whatever it is that we are led to do, that we have to do, is a sign there's a shlichus there. So I would say, if for whatever reason, again, this should be checked with a mashpia, maybe you could do something to make more parnasa from the things you enjoy. Maybe you're not doing all the right things. You have to talk to people that have succeeded in that area. It's always good to talk to someone, an expert in that area, and someone with experience. But let's say you've tried everything and everyone agrees objectively that you've done everything. That doesn't mean that's over. It means that you have to look at what you're doing and find what the shlichus may be. It may be the people that you meet. And it may be that even in the work you're doing that you don't necessarily love, you can bring some of that which you do love. You may be a good people person. You may be very good at analytics. You may be good at other things that the job requires. And as a result, Hashgacha Pratis leads you to that place, so you should be able to actually fulfill your shlichus there, in all your ways knowing God. All your actions should be toward the heaven, for the sake of heaven. So wherever we're doing, if we understand that this is why that they're placed here, and this is God put us here, that alone brings a simcha and a joy and causes you to love it. Now this explains even people do jobs that they don't necessarily like. You don't like it because it doesn't fit your personality. But what about if you think about maybe that you are fulfilling what God wants you to do there, and you're using the opportunity, then there's something you could love. You're loving because you're fulfilling the purpose of your existence, even in a place that you don't necessarily so comfortable, or that you would not have preferred. That's how we transform it. We don't let our lives be shaped by our jobs, and therefore by the unpleasantness or the other circumstances, either the work you don't like, or the people that you don't like, or the whole environment of the workplace people don't like. You transform knowing that you're sent on a shlichus, and neshama comes down this world. The whole world for the neshama is a foreign and hostile and antithetical to what a soul aspires to. Yet we were sent down to the dark world, as Hanukkah teaches us, to bring light. So wherever you're doing, even if it's something you don't like, that's also your mission to do, to bring light there. Now again, I qualify this by saying this doesn't mean, that could apply to all types of work. Obviously, if you have a pecking order, choose something you do enjoy, and then you could do both, have something you enjoy and bring light. But don't ever be perturbed or disturbed by the fact that sometimes we're in a situation, because even when you do things you like, as I mentioned, there's always situations that you're not always pleasant, and yet that too is part of our mission. I want to also refer you to episodes 53, 54, and 55. There I talk a lot about, there I discussed the concept in Chassidus of working with hand, not heart. B'lei lev v'lev. The expression is that you work with your bezeis apecha teichel lechem apecha, but not with your heart, full heart, because you have to reserve your best part for higher spiritual pursuits, Torah, Mitzvos, and so on. And in episodes 126 and 143, spoke about dira b'tachtenim, even in an office job, that whatever you're doing, you can make a dira b'tachtenim. And finally, in episodes 118 and 119, discussed the conflict between talents and livelihood. Very similar to your question here. So this is a topic I've discussed, obviously, in different angles, but wanted to add because this is a topic all of us should always be, all of us are struggling with in some way or another, of trying to integrate and coordinate our divine purpose and the work we're doing. That may not always be something we find ourselves in the best and comfortable place, but it's part of our mission. Next question. Should we stress over having only one child? Hi, Rabbi Jacobson. Your classes are truly inspirational every single week, without exception. I have listened to your most recent talk on YouTube, Uncluttering Your Life. Again, this may not be referring to a My Life episode. This is other programs and classes and material that we distribute or produce every week, which again you can find on meaningfullife.com. On the homepage, you'll see our whole wide array of selection of different topics. You could actually also subscribe there, free subscription. And if you fill out your preferences, you'll actually create your own homepage. You can create your own landing page of the things you're interested in. Some people are interested in relationships, some people are interested in personal matters, some people are interested in science. Whatever it is that you're interested in, or the Parsha, you can actually create a page, and every week you'll get a feed. Your page will be customized to your interests. So one of the topics was uncluttering your life. So this person's asking a question on that recent talk. I want to thank you for your kind words as well. I'm responding. I am a Baal Teshuva, have been married for 8 years and have only one son, aged 4. For the last 6 years of our marriage, we have sought help for infertility problem with some success, namely our one child. As is known, one of the main reasons to get married is to have children, although there are plenty others. One value that is both an outside and intrinsic value to build a family. People almost always look at us strangely when they hear we have only one child after 8 years of marriage. They must think, surely you have more. I wonder where the rest are. So do I. One possible explanation came to me today why we are facing this challenge. Perhaps the reason why Hashem chose us is my own quest throughout my life to be as similar to everyone else. Before I became religious, this took its form in following the latest fashions, talking the talk, walking the walk. Perhaps our test is embracing our uniqueness, being happy for what I have. After all, perhaps we don't need more than one child. Yet this still conflicts with my drive to fight and do whatever it takes to have another child. I'm thinking of us all traveling to Crown Heights to visit the Ohel from where we live in Israel. I am due to have an MRI scan so the doctors can treat my low count. I have just turned 40. This makes this ordeal even more scary for me. My spouse is about to turn 34. We're both not sure of what her problem is. We know that she has not been able to conceive for over all these years. Everyone around us seems to have no difficulties having 5 or more children, including family members. My sister had 6 children, Bli Ayin Hara, and my wife's 6 siblings have reasonably big families, Bli Ayin Hara. My question is, do we make an effort in this matter if it seems we're fulfilling the need to fit in, or is it a mitzvah that wasn't meant for us? I'm crying because this is a very difficult question for me. Even when I pretend everything is okay, I realize it is far from it. Please let me know how we should proceed. Mashiach now. Okay. Having children is a great blessing, no doubt. How many children a person will have, and we're not talking now, this is a discussion on the part where people themselves impose something the Rebbe was against, birth control or family planning. We're not talking about for health reasons, just for own their comfort reasons. So as long as we do what we have to do, we don't know what God will bless us with. God blessed you with a child, Baruch Hashem. Should you try to have, you want to have another child? Absolutely, you try. But to stress over it and to go crazy over it, especially that since you mentioned that you are a conformist and you do things sometimes because of others, definitely that's not appropriate. So that what you have to think to yourself is God blessed you. You and your spouse do whatever you can to have children. But there's no reason for stress. There's betochen. Remember, every child needs three partners, a husband and wife and God. And God, you need a blessing from God. But remember also the Zohar says, it talks about Avram and Sarah, that even when they were beyond the age of having children, or older people, that every time a husband and wife are together in a sacred union, souls are born. If you merit, the souls also come down to earth. So you don't have to be worried for God's plan here. And you have to embrace whatever God blesses you with. So my answer to you, absolutely not stress over it. Do what you can, pray what you can and try, but then be at peace. Whatever happens, happens. Especially that you have a child. With no children at all, so you maybe go for even further, you do everything without leaving any stone unturned. But here, there's no reason for doing that. God blessed you, and then maybe that's what you need to have. And being at peace with it is also important for your spouse to see, because spouses often feel guilty, maybe me, and you are suffering because you can't have more children because I'm the problem. This can go either way, man, woman to man. It's important not to have that. Shalom bayis is also part of what makes the keli for brachas, whatever the bracha may be, children or other brachas. So it's important not to have stress, which also does not help fertility, and have a peaceful partnership and knowing what God blesses us with, we'll be happy with. And say that to Hashem. That is what my response, and that's all that really matters. Everything else does not matter. So my answer to you is very clear-cut. It's not about going crazy about more. You don't have to look at others. Everybody has what God blesses them with. So you don't have to be like anyone else, especially since you mentioned that you have that tendency. So I think that answers the question, and God bless you, whatever it is, be happy with it. And this is the brachas of Hashem, bring up your child in the right way, and God will bless you in many different ways, and blessings come in many different forms and fashions. Next question. Why was I born in this generation? I first just want to say that I love your Wednesday night live series. That's the Wednesday night class. Again, it's not this Sunday night. Wednesday night, which is also every week, usually on general topics. And you could see the details as well every week. Last week I spoke about the Kabbalah of the dreidel, connected to Hanukkah. Okay. You have been such an inspiration to me over the years, and your sermons are full of eloquence and deep, heartfelt truths about the entirety of life and being human. I have a question in regards to your lecture on mapping the spiritual genome. Since we are all unique humans and are ultimately defined by our soul, does our DNA, at least theoretically speaking, can it store pieces of our soul? Also, if that's true, why was I born in this period of time in life and not some other period? Sorry, I just like to ponder about the great unknown. Thanks for your help, Rabbi Simon, and for being such an inspiration to so many. Curious and intrigued. Okay. So let's begin with, yes, we are all unique humans. We're unique by the mere fact that God created everyone in a unique way, with unique strengths and with a unique purpose. So I'm not sure what the question is, but it's obvious. So our DNA, not just theoretically, but practically, stores pieces of our soul, absolutely. The way our minds work, the way our emotions work, the way our so-called soul makeup of our soul, which is the DNA of our soul, also is manifest and is reflected in the DNA of our physiology. So if your mission is to be a teacher, so you'll be given a mind that knows how to teach. If your mission is to be a person who connects with others, you'll be given the right midas for that. Obviously, things are more complicated in the whole spectrum of a person's faculties, but our faculties reflect our mission. So yes, our pieces of our soul are in our DNA. Regarding why we were born in a given time, the same idea. It's divine providence that puts us in any given situation, where we're born, what generation, to which parents, in which city, and also the journey and trajectory of our lives. It's all by a divine plan. Machshava k'duma da'ak, a choreography that's unknown to us. We learn it as we live our lives. We have to be ready that wherever we go, we're here to reveal, to illuminate, to warm the environment, and to make a dira b'tachtenim, a divine home for God in that particular corner of the world in which we were given, which includes our faculties, and includes the time where we were born, what generation, and location. Why some people are born in one generation or another is because they are fitting for that generation's needs. So if we're living today, it means that this generation and its unique challenges that we face means that you have a role to play, an indispensable role to play, to use the opportunities, to face these challenges and turn it into something that is more bright and more illuminating, and more warm and more divine and more spiritual than when you came in. So it's like someone sending you on a mission. You're sent, let's say, to outer space. An astronomer, an astronaut sent to outer space on a mission. You're chosen because you're the fitting person who's the most fit to fulfill this mission. So you're sent to that location. You're sent in a particular time in history because you're the best person to do that job. This applies to all of us living in our time. Why that's the case, that may be not so clear. But the fact of the matter is, the fact that we're here at this time, this is, if you needed to accomplish a job in a different generation, that's when you were born. That's when you would have been lived and born. Now we know there's also the concept of reincarnation, Gilgul, which means that when you're sent to fulfill a certain mission and you don't fulfill it, you're sent again to finish the job. So maybe we come to this generation to finish something that wasn't finished in a previous time period in history. So to know exactly what the souls are, you need to be a person, a master of souls. That we're not. But we know certain givens we do know. We know we're living in this time, in the 21st century. We know where we may be living, whoever it is, wherever you are, in the country, in the city, the place you're living. We know we may travel, we may move, we may go for school or for vacation or move just in general, move in the middle of our lives somewhere. All this is Mashem B'Tzadik Gavri Kenanu. God leads the footsteps of a person. And it's all for a purpose. So our job is to recognize and try to find what is the purpose. So the fact, for example, we live in a time with all kinds of technology. It means that we people who know technology, it's meant for use. Everything God created in the world, He created only for His honor. So when He gave us technology, as opposed to our grandparents or great-grandparents who didn't have this technology, it means that this technology that you're using right now should be used like we're doing right now to broadcast Chassidus. Send an email, social media. You'll say, well, somebody could have been born 1,000 years ago now, and they would have known technology. Ein chanami. If that happened, then their soul belongs in this time. So the bottom line is that we have to recognize is that every part of our lives, every detail is choreographed and has a purpose. And we have to embrace that purpose and not fight that purpose. We have to use it for the right purpose and not use it for selfish or for nonsense. That's the challenge we have. So yes, each of us have our unique soul, and the DNA and everything that we're given is our tools. It's like the astronaut is given all the necessary tools and resources and skills and methodology necessary to fulfill the mission. So too we're given them. And this includes also the generation we're in. We're given the wisdom, we're given the adaptability, the ability to achieve what we have to achieve in this life of ours. And all of it accumulates, obviously. When all of us do our thing, we all accumulate, standing as midgets on the shoulders of giants to bring the Geula Amitis Vashlema, which is the grand symphony, when all the musical notes and all the personal missions, each person in its location and in the time in history come together. Which explains, as the Rebbe says very often, when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America in 1940, the Rebbe came in 1941, now came a new stage of coming to Chatzi Kader HaTacht, because now the bitter has to continue, whatever reason the Geula didn't come yet, so now we have to do the refinement in this part of the world where Matan Torah was not in a revealed way, as is explained in many of the Sikhs. So that too shows you the right person, the right time, the right place in history, and the right location, each fitting the personal mission that a person has. Okay. Next question, a little sensitive question, and that is, do I need to repent for allowing myself to be abused? Because this question is somewhat a little graphic, I edited it a bit not to be just for Edelkeit purposes and Tznius purposes, but still viewer discretion advised. And that is, it goes 15 years ago, I put myself in a position that ended in me being violated by someone I knew. I was I was a yeshiva graduate and never should have entered that apartment, even though it was only supposed to be for a minute. The Me Too movement brought it all back to the forefront of my mind. My question is, how do I ever recover from knowing that it was my fault? Of course, the perpetrator was the one who gets the blame. But had I followed halacha, this may not have happened. Or is this something that I should never forgive myself for? An additional note, because I've seen it elsewhere, is that many women are too polite to say no, simply, and outright to someone else. And I would think that this is especially true for frum women and shluchis. In my case, I would never be with this person, but when he came after me, and I kept resisting, but nevertheless, I allowed myself to be in that compromised position. Please let your listeners be reminded that screaming no is not being impolite. Okay. This is a topic, like many topics, that are very sensitive. I don't avoid them because they're real issues and we need to address them from a Torah and a Chassidus point of view. So it's correct to say that yes, we always have the choice and the free will to impose, to put ourselves in positions that protect us. That's why there's a thing called Hilchos Yichud. Hilchos Yichud is precisely not to be in a compromised situation, not to wait for something, to God forbid, to happen, but just l'chadchila, not to put yourself in that position. If everybody followed those laws, we wouldn't have all the issues we have today. Because they all start with somewhere being lax in something that maybe we think is not so important, or we don't think we can control, or this and that. No, there are laws and they should be followed. Now, regarding this guilt of having to do tshuva, let's make something very clear here. Even though it says in Tanya, Negeres HaKedesh, Ala nizik far nigzam min hashamayim, which means when somebody is hurt, that's what's designated from heaven, but it doesn't say anywhere that you have to feel guilty and repent over that. It means you have to know there's something to be learned from that. And the person who perpetrated will be punished for rei b'chirase. When there's a crime of this nature, even though a person may have done something a little wrong, but that's not the crime. The crime was done by someone, and let's put the blame where the blame belongs. And it's really unhealthy to start dwelling and thinking you're guilty or need to repent for someone else's crime that they did to you. Now, there are situations where the criminal is completely at 100%. Somebody literally, by gunpoint, decides to do something to someone and they can't control because it's simply the threat of life or whatever it may be, and they're simply not in their power. Then, for sure, there's nothing to be guilty about. But the nature of people is they feel guilty. They feel I shouldn't have been in that situation. Something I may have contributed to it. But even a situation where a person can say, I did put myself even 1% in a compromised situation, still to cause that to become a source of guilt and repentance can become an unhealthy obsession where you're almost letting the other person off the hook. And I've seen this. Sometimes victims they feel they're the criminals. And the criminal becomes, so to speak, the Nebuch one. So I want to just eliminate that possibility. Someone does a crime, they did the crime. The crime is done against you, against me, God forbid. We have to understand we were the victim, not the criminal. The fact that we may have done something, fine. So what you take upon yourself is achlot. I will never put myself in a compromised situation. I will teach others and speak out like you're writing here, which helps others, which is the way that we do tshuva. The tshuva is, in other words, not through guilt and saying blame yourself, like the words you use. I should never forgive myself. No, absolutely not. Tshuva, like the Rebbe tells people time and again, if something you fell through, the Rebbe says even worse than this, where you're not where you were, let's say, did something really directly wrong, then the way to correct it is, number one, is never to do it again. Take that strong resolution. The tshuva is being in the same situation but not doing the same mistake again. The second thing, helping inspire others that not to prevent them from falling in the same way, because that becomes a tikkun and a repair for you. So I want to make it very clear. Criminal is a criminal, and do not feel that you're a partner in the crime when someone's violated in this fashion. Absolutely not. Number two is the things you have to do are positive things to correct. Any demoralization that comes from guilt is always coming from a negative place, as he says in Tanya. So you have to really look into your heart. What is all this guilt and the feeling for repent achieving? Is it motivating you to become a better person, or is it just driving you crazy with guilt and consumed with your own regrets, which is not, that doesn't have any benefit? So that's the response to this question and to all similar questions. We don't have to repent for someone else's crime. We have to look inside our hearts and say, what do I learn from it? How do I grow from it? And yes, if in case something that may have been done wrong, to make sure you don't do it again. But let's not equate the two. There's no moral equivalence between the criminal and the person who's like someone going at night. Let's say, and they shouldn't have gone late at night, and a crime, someone mugs them, and someone holds them up, and someone. So you could say to yourself, I shouldn't have walked out at night. Correct. So don't walk out at night again, or make sure you take the right precautions. But to equate that with the fact that the criminal who robbed you or mugged you is the same level? Absolutely not. You have to repent for going out at night. You have to repent if you did something wrong, and you have to correct it, but all in a positive way and not be consumed by the guilt that often comes, especially in violations of this nature. I also advise, like all sensitive matters like this, to talk to someone. I thank you for writing, and I hope it helps others as well. Talk to someone. And yes, I do want to reiterate what you say at the end. There's laws of yichud in Torah. All these sexual harassment discussions would never exist if someone follows those laws. I understand it's a joke. You'll say they follow those laws. They don't follow any laws. But I'm saying what we can learn, the laws of separation of individuals. A man and a woman should not be together in any given circumstance. There are very clear laws about this. Don't even allow a situation to even be possible. Will avoid a lot. And yes, there is such a thing, saying no. And a person should know that there's nothing in being embarrassed if someone is trying to put you in a compromised situation in any way, and as manipulative as they may be, you have the right and the ability to say no and stand strong and avoid that person altogether. You don't have to feel guilty, because they often feed on people's sensitivities, not wanting to be rude, but they're the ones that's being rude. And it's very important to be able to just end the conversation and say, it's inappropriate, I'm out of here, and be nothing ashamed about that. If you're in a situation where you're dependent on someone, because they're your boss or some other situation, so there's the laws of yichud that you just established from the outset, and you make sure that they're strong. Predators go after people where they see a weakness, where they try to feed on, they try to weaken. But if you stand strong, in most cases you can prevail. If a person is a truly criminal predator, so then we have to talk about how to do more aggressive things, and maybe you shouldn't be working there, or to report the person like we see today. That's becoming the way to go. And there's a climate today where there's more sympathy because of what we've seen. So we have to be able to take advantage of that as well, if unfortunately it comes to that. This really deserves more discussion. I'm keeping it in context of this particular question. Let's do a bunch of follow-ups. I saved a lot of time here for follow-ups because simply they're coming in. And we'll go in order here. We're doing now a follow-up for episode 191, should be 2 weeks ago, about Dreams and Birchat Kohanim. The question was, that was asked, why by Birchat Kohanim do we, when the Kohanim, when they finish, by the Chabad's Minig, by you say the last 3 words in the Birchat Kohanim, we say, we say the Rebbeinu Shalom that talks about dreams. So I spoke their explanation. I had not seen explanation, but some type of connection between the blessing of Kohanim with dreams. Now, I'll speak a little more elaborately because some people have wrote about this, so let me follow up and fill in that which may have been missed. I don't have a complete answer why we pray regarding our dreams during Birchas Kohanim, but it's based on a Gemara in Brachos. I don't remember if I mentioned it, but if I didn't, it should have been mentioned. The Gemara in Brachos, the tefillah, why we say the Rebbeinu Shalom about dreams, Birchas Kohanim, the Gemara talks about it. If a person has a bad dream or has a negative or is not clear about a dream, the different interpretations there, they should go before the Kohanim, and that's why we say this Rebbeinu Shalom. So it's the Gemara in Brachos Nun Hey Omid Beis that talks about it specifically. As far as the explanation for it, the Gemara doesn't give an explanation, except it clearly seems that the Kohanim have some type of power connected to dreams. I suggested an explanation. In Pri Eitz Chaim, from the Arizal, I should say, Shar Chazoras HaAmida, at the end of chapter 7, and also quoted in the Kaf HaChaim, there he does give a Kabbalistic explanation, but it's complete Kabbalah, very cryptic. I looked at it, I don't feel adequate to even repeat what it says there. You can look it up yourself. It's completely in Kabbalistic terms that the Birchas Kohanim has a connection to the places where dreams originate from. The explanation I gave in episode 191 is the so-called Chassidic explanation of the power of dreams, the power of Kvichus Kem to go where the source of dreams are. So it could fit into the Kisvei Arizal that I just mentioned. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? The Noam Elimelech. The Noam Elimelech in Parshas Truma says, he says, Al derech the Isa b'Sefer, he quotes a Sefer. The Sefer may well be, I'm just looking it up, the Sefer may well be, just give me a moment, Teres Chaim. But he doesn't quote the name by name. Anyway, he says the following. Why do we say by Birchas Kohanim the Rebbeinu Shalom about dreams? Because a dream, the Gemara says, is 1/60th of prophecy. The Kohanim are complete prophets when they're benching, because they're benching as God's shluchim, shluchim de Rachmana. That's why you're not allowed to look at the Kohanim when they're giving their bracha, because the Shekhinah is resting on them, their hands. That's why we say the Rebbeinu Shalom, because when we want to mevatel the cholim, which is 1/60th of a prophecy, we want it to be batel b'shishim. We want it to be so-called eliminated in the 60 of the full prophecy of the Kohanim. That's what he says. So they're like nullified. Let me see what else I have in this. The Rambam in Meir Nevuchim, section 2, chapter 36, talks about that even though a prophecy is 1/60th a dream is 1/60th of prophecy, it's inappropriate to make comparisons between prophecy and dreams, because even though it says the buds of prophecy are dreams, but it's a great metaphor, he says, but just as a bud is not the actual fruit, a dream is not the actual prophecy. And we can't make the correlations properly, so we don't do that. Brings also a Zohar in Pekudei, page 254a, that says why 1/60th? Because 6 levels between Netzach and Rotzen. Rotzen is the place where dreams come from, the will, the unconscious, and Netzach is where prophecy comes from. That's what the Zohar says. I'm just giving a little more information, and one more thing finally to add, that there are 60 words in Birchas Kohanim. So it also fits to that, being that it's 1/60th, dreams are 1/60th of a prophecy, and prophecy is all 60, so it's 60 words in Birchas Kohanim. Just to add a little more to the discussion. Next follow-up. Sefer Teres Chaim by Rav Avram Chaim Shor, on Baba Kama Daf Nun Hey Omer Aleph, that he speaks something similar to that, a little more in detail. I'll also mention a Yalkut Shmeini in Parsha Nosei, Remez Tov Shin Yud. There's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim that it says, by near the Mitzvah Shlema, near the bed of Shlema Melech, 60 mighty men are about it. They're experts of war. And the Medrash says the 60 men are the 60 letters of Birchas Kohanim. The words have that power to protect us from the dead in the night. That's the pasuk, from the dead of the night. These 60 strong men protect us. Seemingly the frightening dreams that we have at night. Okay. Let's move on to another follow-up. We'll follow up. We talked about the murals that people paint on walls of the Rebbe's pictures. Hi, Rabbi Jacobs. I want to comment on the episodes 186 and 188, where you spoke about the murals on the alley walls and tznius on the Chabad websites. Let's discuss then about painting the Rebbe's picture on walls and people defacing it. You can go there to those episodes in the archives and see exactly what was said. I heard from Rabbi Rubin from Albany, New York, Shliach in Albany, that when he printed a journal for his Chabad house, there was an ad with a photograph of a woman with her sleeve a bit above her elbow. When he sent it into the Rebbe wrote next to the picture, who is taking the achrayus responsibility for this? I'm not sure how this is related to what I discussed. I spoke about defacing something, Mechil Hashem, but since you wrote it, I read it. I also want to comment on what you spoke about recently, episode 186, another follow-up, the Shidduchim crisis, where some FFBs don't want to marry children of Baalei Teshuva. You mentioned that perhaps some have an issue because the parents weren't born with mikveh. I want to share a story that I heard from Rabbi David Edelman, Olav Shalom, the Shliach of Springfield, Massachusetts. He was once by the Rebbe for Yechidus, and he mentioned for a bracha a woman with 2 unwell children. The Rebbe requested of him to find out if the children were born with taras hamishpachim. He inquired, and the answer was in the negative. So Rabbi Edelman informed the Rebbe. The Rebbe replied that tshuva helps l'mafreya. Tshuva helps over going back also, for the past as well, including for taras hamishpacha. So it will be considered as if she kept taras hamishpacha, and that will help her children. So in other words, from here on, it can have effect on the past. Fine. That's good. Tshuva does affect the past, especially tshuva ma'ava, and thank you for that. Another follow-up, ultrasound. This was episodes 190, 191, spoke about it at length. A person writes, I listen regularly to my life. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, I listen regularly to my life, Chassidus applied, and recommend it to whomever I can. May you be blessed with the keiches to continue this important this important project, at least until Mashiach's coming. In answer to the comment sent in by someone claiming that sonogram is much safer now than it used to be, I wish that was true. It is much more powerful than it used to be, more than 7 times stronger than it was when first used. It has never actually been proven safe, and experiments have shown that ultrasound can have bad effects on the development of cells, including brain cells. Once ultrasound was used only rarely during pregnancies, these days it is often used at each doctor's appointment, and the side effects are cumulative. In 2014, the FDA actually issued a caution to the use of ultrasound during pregnancy. It was once believed that X-rays were totally safe too. Surely, as long as there's any reason to suspect even a possibility of harmful side effects to the unborn baby, it would be wise to be extremely cautious. We don't want to risk our children's physical and mental health. I'm reading this in its entirety, even though there are clearly other opinions, and I've read them as well. So please don't take this as a standalone piece. It's a comment from one commenter. And as I said then, the Rebbe made it very clear to be asked medical professionals and asked Rabbanim in each case, and weigh all the factors and all the reasons and all the elements regarding this. And I go back again, the archives, meaningfullife.com/mylife, episodes 190, 191 is where I initially discussed this topic. Next topic was last week's question of Chassidus about self-control, mind over matter, where I spoke about the question was, does that also affect our unconscious, our subconscious? So here a person writes, thanks for these great shiurim. In the world of psychology, there's a lot of talk now about the power of the subconscious and how it could drag the mental healing process if we don't deal with the subconscious. Some psychotherapists believe that talk therapy is not enough and encourage hypnosis therapy to heal the subconscious. RTT Marissa Peer. Now in chapter 33, the Tanya writes, Ashenu Matev Cholkenu, etc. We should celebrate the fact that the secret of Eined Movadi came to us as an inheritance without having earned it. I believe the same goes with the idea revealed to us of doing daily hypnosis to heal the subconscious. I.e., the director from the Torah explained at length by the Tanya, the technique of daily hisbonenus, mindful meditation before and during prayer. That's one writer writes about that. Another writer writes, Dear Rabbi Jacobson, the subconscious mind believes what we tell it. A child who receives positivity will have a much easier time going through adulthood because of how subconscious believes. So I'd say that the subconscious mind is also only a tool, garment, of the soul, and we can transform the subconscious by telling it positive and uplifting talk and whatever it needs to hear. Perhaps where the Tanya talks about faculties of the soul, that can be transformed. It talks about a deeper level than the subconscious mind. And finally, another comment on this topic. I'm just reading them as they came in without comments because they speak for themselves. Another comment, I read The Master Key System by Charles F. Hannell. It talks about the intense power of the mind and that the mind is connected to the universal mind. It reminded me of teachings from Chassidus. For example, the Shekhinah resides in Chachma. 2, cause and effect. It all starts in the mind. 3, Targut. 4, everything is godliness. In the secular world, up to figuring out the information given to us by, is the secular world up to figuring out the information given to us by the Torah? How do they come to the conclusions by themselves? Thank you. What I find fascinating is that this topic, which is a very good question about Murals Ta'alev, whether we control also the subconscious, has elicited so many different reactions from people clearly are educated in different areas. So clearly this is a topic that deserves a lot more discussion, but I just wanted to read these comments. And finally, the final follow-up we're going to do is Sheva Mitzvos Bnei Noach, and then we'll do the Chassidus question, and then we'll do the essays. So last week I spoke about doing the Rebbe's call to follow the Rambam, the Sof Perek Ches of Hilchos Malachim, which is about spreading and inspiring non-Jews to do their Sheva Mitzvos Bnei. So here's a few comments that came as a follow-up. A few ideas of how to be involved with Zion Mitzvahs. To the Master Mashpia and the Holy Servant of the Supreme King of Kings, Simon Jacobson. I see this person writes again and again, very nice. You're making a Jew smile, so that's always good. Here are a couple of ideas for the 7 mitzvahs. A Prager University-style series of videos about the 7 mitzvahs, 1. 2. A franchise of non-profit Noah's Ark groups run by Jews and non-Jews with the 7 mitzvahs promoted as the eternal mission of these groups. They should have community functions, trips, learning, shidduchim, etc., all within the 7 mitzvahs community. Freilich and Chanukah. A second person writes, practical Noahide outreach activities. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, thank you so much for issuing this challenge to inspire each other in the area of bringing the nations under the wings of the Shekhinah. Here are 3 simple ways that I personally use to help inspire the non-Jews in my sphere of influence to connect with God. 1. I send out a daily meditation text message each day with a short and simple universal message from Chassidus, i.e. something like, quote, a little light dispels much darkness, end quote, or prayer changes things, or every moment of your life contains an aspect of your life's mission. Baruch Hashem, this project has been going on for almost 3 years, and there are over 100 people who receive the daily text as people recommended it to their friends and family members. Human souls are starving for emes, truth. 2, another suggestion, same person. I had magnetic signs printed for the doors of my car that say, your life has divine purpose. I can't tell you how many conversations this has started at gas stations and in parking lots. The magnetic signs only cost about $20 each, and everywhere my car goes, this essential message is spread. 3, simply saying thank God when someone asks how I am. Thank you again for all your work. May you go from strength to strength always. Another writer writes, hello, Rabbi Jacobson. I have a response to the question you raised last night and also an idea for a future show. Regarding how to best reach out to the non-Jewish community, I think telling stories is a wonderful avenue because the stories transcend what might be perceived as religious dogma. For instance, if there's an opportunity to tell a Chassidic story that is so much more effective, in my opinion, than trying to directly teach non-Jews about what Hashem expects of them. Much more entertaining also. For example, a story such as the one you told about the Maggid of Mizrich when he is visited by the wealthy merchant makes a wonderful point without being heavy-handed. Likewise, most of the Chassidic stories. Okay. As far as the suggestion, we'll read that in another episode. And finally, a 4th writer writes, Tanya and non-Jews, which you discussed in episodes 31 and 192. Shalom, Rabbi Jacobson. Rav Jacobson. I was watching your Shir Chassidus applied episode 31. Wow, that's a long way back. My name is, name withheld, and I live in Shalavim, Israel. I'm currently studying Smicha at Yeshiva Shalavim and have the schus of giving a daily share in Tanya. I've been searching for a while for an answer to a question that has been bothering both my students and me. According to the Alter Rebbe, what is the purpose of the non-Jewish people in the world? If our Jews' purpose, that is Jews' purpose, is to make this place a dwelling place for Hashem, what role do the Goyim play in this big goal? It seems, according to your conclusion, that we have the same goal except different ways of fulfilling that. Am I understanding this correctly? Thank you. Yes and no. They do have the goal of the Sheva Yitzhara, to make this world a civilized place, and that's through the Sheva Mitzvos Bnei. In that, there's many overlaps to what the role of a Id is. But what a role of a Id adds, Chassidus says, is somewhat of the higher Shevav Kalalman, transcendent energy. There's a wonderful sikh in Chelik Tezvav Noach about the laws regarding a non-Jew keeping Shabbos. So that really explains it very beautifully. You can look it up in Noach in Chelik Tezvav, volume 15 in Likutei Sichos. And I've discussed this. So there is similarities and there's some differences. And according to the Alter Rebbe, if you're talking about the Shalosh Klipsat Meis, you're talking about goyim that are nachsidu misha'ilam, people who are Nazis or absolutely negative people, and there were in history such people. Their purpose is another discussion. Their purpose, if we can only get them to stop being murderers and stop being pagans, that is also something. But we're talking now, generally speaking, when the Rebbe speaks about the Sheva Mitzvah goyim, non-Jews that are absolutely potential and absolutely receptive to them doing what they have to achieve. Let us go, because time is short. I'll go to the Chassidus question. And as I said, I referred you to episodes 131 and 192 regarding the previous. There's 2 points in the Chassidus question. One is, does the soul really want to be born? Rabbi Jacobson, thank you so much for accepting all these questions and giving the best answers that the human mind can grasp. In the Hayom Yom of the 16th of Cheshvan, it says that the neshama eagerly waits for the opportunity to come down to earth, into a body, because it feels how much it could accomplish. On the other hand, it says in Pirkei Avos 4:22, chapter 4, Mishnah 22, that we are formed and born against our will, al korcha chatechai, and live against our will. How can we reconcile these two views, especially when the second view seems much more real? Thank you. Chassidus answers this very basically, yes, a neshama does not want to come down to this dark world. It comes down because God has to compel it to come down. And once it comes down, you have to force it to want to leave, because it appreciates the avodah. Why does it end up coming down? Because Hashem shows what it can accomplish. But even when He shows it, the neshama still has to retain its resistance, which is why al korcha chatechai, that's why the neshama remains like a flame, always reaching upward. God forbid should the neshama get too comfortable in this world. It makes us restless. It makes us feel a certain aspiration to the transcendent, to God, to what's higher. So the neshama comes down because there's a kavanah, but it doesn't come down peacefully. It comes down knowing that it is going to a place where the fulfillment of the purpose is greater, but its aspiration, the neshama's aspiration, is still to go upward. So it comes down because it ultimately feels the shadish, the root, and the yafeh sha'achas, the power, the beauty and the power that we accomplish with 1 hour of tshuva ma'asim tovim is greater than all the neshama's achievements in heaven. But it still retains that element of not wanting to do so, because in Revelation, the levels of Gilead Likus, the neshama is far more comfortable above, and this is a hostile world and antithetical to the divine, and to the neshama's aspirations. Okay. Second point, someone wrote in the Chassidus question, completely unrelated. Dear Rabbi, I just studied a Chanukah Maamar from the Rebbe. V'ato b'rechamecha harabim Shabbos Parashat Miketz, Shabbos Chanukah Tovshin Mem Ches. That would be 30 years ago. With the conclusion, he quotes the Mittler Rebbe, there will be no more hashmadas. He quotes the famous Mittler Rebbe where he speaks about there will be no more genocides. This was the Mittler Rebbe's times. So the question is, that was before World War II. And we see, bottom line, we do see that there were. 2, he quotes the pasuk Le'sokim Pa'amayim Tzara, that the Tzara should not repeat itself. He says that's a pasuk in Noach that speaks about the nation in Nineveh. How does it relate to the Jewish people, the Ikvus of the Mashiach, the Jewish people at the end of the days? Chag Sameach. So regarding the Mittler Rebbe, I discussed this at length in episode 31. So I refer you to there, to look there. And no need to repeat it. Regarding question number 2, even if it's regarding the nation of Nineveh, very often there are expressions we use from Tanakh that says, Le'sokim Pa'amayim, doesn't matter what context it was used. The Rebbe uses the expression very often talking about the Holocaust or other negative things, that there never again should be another tzara. Additionally, we learn from Nineveh as well. The whole story, Yonah went to Nineveh, didn't want them to do tshuva because it would reflect bad on the Eden, but at the end of the day, the whole after Yonah, we say Yom Kippur, we learn from Nineveh, so we can learn from Nineveh even this matter as well. Okay, let us go now to the essays, and the 3 essays as always. First, a mystical look at wigs by Sterna Altes, age 43, Sydney, Australia. Great, original, a mystical look at wigs. So she writes about, in this essay I would like to highlight the great blessings promised to a married woman who covers her hair properly, based on Kabbalah and Chassidus. This mitzvah was a bakosha nafshis, a heartfelt personal call of the Rebbe, that married women wear specifically a sheitel, a wig, to cover their hair once they are married. This is something so important to the Rebbe and something we can do to purify the world around us. Did you ever wonder why hair covering why has it become so important to cover after marriage? And why did the Lubavitch Rebbe stress that women should wear a sheitel? And begins with quoting a letter from the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos volume, is it Likutei Sichos or is it Egris Kodesh? Not sure. But anyway, volume 19, page 326, and goes on in a very comprehensive way, talks about the blessings that come through it, the reasons why hair, and a very interesting and engaging essay, which is definitely should go part of the canon of this discussion. I know a website was created is inspired by my talks here about covering hair. So this definitely fits into that category. And thank you for writing that. Very good. Next essay, Mining for the Light, a Chassidic View of a Doctor in Africa by Ian Merlin, age 68, Toronto, Canada. So thank you, Ian, for writing this and for your nice, kind words at the end. So this is really taking a personal life, his own personal life, which is a father that grew in Africa, in South Africa. So he writes, with the goal of presenting this childhood memory in the fairest light, I should confess that the learning I describe here did not occur in the moment as a result of applying Chassidic insight to a situation at hand. It would be more accurate to say that it is the mellowing effect of time, coupled with my more recent attraction to Chassidus, that has allowed me to look backwards across the years to properly see the wisdom that lay before me back then. That the learning took so long for me to fully appreciate hasn't dimmed its resonance. On the contrary, it is entirely due to the profound principles contained in the Chassidic tradition that I find the story and the life lessons it offers to have been elevated and made immeasurably more meaningful. And begins through the lens of memory. South Africa is a country where the primitive nature of the dark continent often clashes discordantly with the 21st century progress and the relative sophistication of a modern society and its values. He talks about his own father being a doctor there, and how Chassidus illuminated and appreciated his father's true contribution, and brings a beautiful story about his father, how brought healing to that part of the world. And then through the lens of Chassidus, how Chassidus added a whole dimension of appreciation in his own life. So very well done, personalized, and therefore applicable essay, and thank you for that. This essay and all these essays can be read as they're posted each week. New essays are posted at meaningfullife.com/mylife, and just go to Essays 2017 and you'll find them all. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and we send you the new essays as they're posted. Finally, essay number 3, A Perfect Fit by Yehuda Freeman, age 68, Brooklyn, New York. It's about Amalek. You shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget, is the verse in Devarim. My great problem is this: despite such moments, I continue to doubt. This is from a poem from Aleph by Paulo Coelho, Nobel Prize winning author, and discusses the whole idea of Mashiach in the context of the doubts we may have, doubts being Amalek. Interesting, again, very original, understanding what doubts are, understanding more in depth the whole Amalek, and has actually a very interesting analysis of the Ketz, which means in Daniel, where he speaks about the end of days, when that would come about. So I don't want to be a spoiler, so you can read and see it inside. Again, a nice essay, interesting, different, definitely different, with a take-home message of how to find clarity, how to find certainty in a world of doubt, and in the war against Amalek, the bringing of Geula. So with that, we conclude the essays. We conclude this episode. Thank God I was able to cover everything that we advertised and promised. This has been My Life Chassidus Applied, episode 193, a special Hanukkah edition. Everyone should have a simcha, a freiliche, a joyful, illuminating, warming, spiritual, soulful Hanukkah. As Hanukkah comes the next few days, as we increase in the light, and that light should dispel all darkness naturally, automatically, and it should extend all year round, that we should have a year of light and bracha, and a light that automatically eliminates any challenge and any type of impediment or darkness that may come our way, until we zeichet to actually return to Beis HaMikdash with the Menorah, Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, the Neder Shel Tzion, will light those lights in Jerusalem, in Zion. This has been My Life Chassidus Applied. We're here every Sunday night, 8 to 9 p.m. Please send us your questions, your comments, and thank God, God's blessed us that we continue the effort, and ultimately spreading Chassidus brings Mashiach. Thank you so much, and everyone have a freilich Hanukkah.